there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So, update day, and the only meaningful thing that's happening right now is the Mantis tune-up. And well, I say meaningful, but the changes aren't that major. So what has changed with Mantis? Basically, now, whilst you are hitting opponents' block, whilst they have Intimidate debuff on them, you gain 2 mixed emotion passives instead of 1, which actually does make her significantly easier to get to the max amount of damage output and kind of ramp her up quicker, which is definitely a positive change. And then the other change is that her heavy charge furies are 10% more potent, which again, don't get me wrong, is absolutely not a bad thing. It is more damage, but it's far from the issue area that I think Mantis had. My personal kind of like little gripes with Mantis is the fact that number one, she has 0 safety net, being a champion that basically does require you to intercept quite a lot. And then also the fact that her level 1 is where the utility is, but it completely tanks her damage. Because Mantis is the type of champion where 85% of her damage is on level 2. But if you do need anything else, then her damage is just abysmal. And then lastly, that heavy charge mechanic consuming all your mixed emotions passives, regardless of how long you charge your heavy attack, does often limit her in which nodes or matchups you can kind of use her. Because let's say we're going to have Ebb and Flow knockdown node, it's going to be quite tricky to navigate that, where you need to drop your heavy attack to disable Ebb and Flow knockdown, for instance, and then you quickly need to build up again, and then you need to throw your special attack. And that just seems quite a lot of work there. But obviously, not every champion's meant to work on every node and so on and so forth. So for me personally, Mantis, kind of cool champion that always seemed slightly below average. And this buff, well, this first of all, this gameplay is pre-buff here, so we can compare the results. And with Mantis, for me personally, yeah, she does seem somewhat below average champion compared to the current top skill champions. Like, Valkyrie, Nick Fury, Kingpin, Kate, and a whole bunch of others. And the reality is, these changes that they did to Mantis obviously are very minimal. And if you liked Mantis before, you will still like her, and you'll like her slightly more. And if you didn't like Mantis before, you're probably not gonna like her too much either. So here we can see that she throws 127k guaranteed crit on her second hit of special attack as a maximum amount of damage. And you can see that even pre-buff, her ramp-up isn't too bad. We quite easily managed to get to 20 charges by the time we got to 2 bars of power. And now again, we have 11 charges. I need to bait out this special attack, and we're going to get to those 20 charges, I think, or close to 20 charges if we need be. Very quick as well. We're getting here to 19. I'm going to put Intimidate on, and now we're going to charge the level 2. And there we go. That is the end of the fight. Again, 127k crit, and that was 1 minute and 21 seconds. And now, her synergies are helpful to her to ramp up quicker, largely, because they can increase the duration of Intimidate, and this is Mantis synergized pre-buff. And that increases the duration of Intimidate, which in theory lets you get in more intercepts. In practice, it doesn't really help you too much, because when you bait out special attack, it's basically the same thing, really, is what I'm trying to say. And then I just gave her some power gain synergies, because getting to level 2 as fast as possible is kind of the most important thing for her. That I didn't even need to intercept, but I still did, because why not, I suppose. And here we're going to see that I actually here released my level 2 slightly bit too early. I only had 1 cruelty active. That's not the biggest problem. But the point I'm trying to make is that Mantis pre-buff and also post-buff doesn't really benefit from synergies. It did make her slightly easier to ramp up, but it doesn't really affect her damage output or much in the fight. Otherwise, as it's going to be evident here, I think there's going to be like 1 second difference I'm going to get in the fight compared to when I used her with and without synergies. But the fights were lasting, 1 minute and 20, right? I think the first fight was 120, and this one we're going to check out in a second. Again, here we had 132k crit, and it was 121 and 120. And to put it in comparison, how well and fast she can do these fights in smaller health pools, it's about 30 seconds, 30 to 40 seconds, pending on opponent's AIs at times. And I know that I do have Recall Masteries active for these shorter fights as well, but trust me when I tell you it does not matter because there's going to be a ton of overkill. So you'd effectively get pretty much the same result with or without Recall Masteries. I mean, exactly the same speed of this takedown. So here I need to get in that one intercept here, I suppose, and I'm just going for my level 2, and it's going to be well overkill here. We can see that release 79k. And there's like 100k overkill or 110k overkill there. And this fight was 37 seconds. I had done it as fast as 30 seconds. Again, it just depends how well AI plays with you. And this is all her pre-buff gameplay again. But as we can see, when it comes to fight speed and stuff like that, nothing really changed her. I will give them the fact that she's easier to use. But at the same time, yeah, the difference there isn't that major because 2 bars of power is quite a long time for your ramp up. And the most important thing is effectively just the cycle in between your infuriates and intimidates. That's about it. One key thing is that you typically want to make sure that you have Intimidate active, or Intimidate is the thing that's going on cooldown when you're dropping your level 2. Here we can see that we did it exactly the same as Deadpool with a ton of overkill. And now we have the buff. And after the buff, I didn't even bother recording with Synergized Team because it really didn't matter for her damage output. But here we can see that the difference is going to be for she's easier to ramp up, and that in a bit of a roundabout way will also often mean that you need to intercept less, or there's less need for intercepting, because you can gain a lot of mixed emotion passives off your Intimidate now, just hitting opponent's block, which means you do not need to stress about landing your intercepts as much, which is something that I do like a lot about this change. It's actually kind of better than perhaps I thought I would. I don't think it's major change. I haven't changed my opinion about Mantis to any meaningful degree on a personal level at all. We can see that instead of 127k, she now hits for 133k. So level 2 here got extra 6k damage basically, which, you know, again, is nice, but definitely wasn't kind of like a deal breaker. Insufficient level 2 damage was never a problem. Here we can see that I pretty much immediately got back up to 20 charges, and now we can primarily use that Infuriate just to force opponent to be aggressive instead of worrying about intercepts and making sure that we can bait out special attacks easier from opponent. And I like that change. It does make feel like she's more practical to use now because you do not need to worry about opponents having little to no power when Infuriate is active, so you get in all of those intercepts. You feel like you can use Infuriate in similar way like you do with Hercules, just making sure that AI is more cooperative and, you know, you can get in your fights. Here again, we got the 20 charges before I even got to a bar of power, and now I basically benefited from that Infuriate just to make sure he throws his special attack super quickly. And now here we go for level 2, and again, it's massively overkill. And this is 30 seconds. And then we're going to go up against Venom the Duck here, against 200k health pool. And it's going to be basically the same story, where I'm going to get in my charges here super quickly. And I realized I don't even really need to bother intercepting as much. I can just maybe land in 1 or 2 intercepts at the beginning, and I'd be fine because there's so much kind of like room from the Intimidate cycle in her rotation to get those mixed emotion passives. And now I again used Infuriate just to make sure that he throws a special attack quicker. So this change to Intimidate effectively does function to transform the purpose of Infuriate. And this was again 34 seconds, and it does feel better to use her. But ultimately, quite obviously, yeah. If you did not like Mantis before, I highly doubt the change is meaningful enough to make you like Mantis now. Because again, it's 10% more potent Fury, which in many cases will not matter, but it does give her somewhat of higher reach. But that Intimidate debuff change, for the little bit of time that I did have to mess around with her, I did enjoy it. She did felt like she's easier to use, which is a good change. And again, it is a small thing that maybe will have quite decently big implications. At the same time, I still think as a champion she's somewhat lacking, because she doesn't have any shrug of abilities if you don't use level 1. If you use level 1s, you can sacrifice all your damage basically, or most of your damage, and then there's no ability accuracy reduction. There's very little of stuff that you would want from skill champion. Like, would you want to use Mantis against Man Thing, for instance? Not really, because those crits not gonna do much damage. Would you want to use Mantis against the Thing? Not really, because protection is gonna eat it all up. Would you want to use Mantis against Mr. Fantastic? Probably not, because your special attack damage is gonna get gimped, and the weight can still catch you unless you go for cleanses and stuff. So there will be obviously matchups where she does work well, but I just still think she's a bit too bare, and she's a bit too one-dimensional. She can function as a nuke because those are very fast times for sure. She can function as a quick fight finisher, but we have a lot of that in the game, and functionally, I do not necessarily view her any different at the moment as I do, let's say, Gamora or something like that. Like, yeah, there will be a time and place when she will shine, but she's definitely not somebody that you should go out of your way to get or rank and awaken and stuff like that. That is what I thought of Mantis before, and that is what I think of her now still. Let me know your opinions, though. I'm definitely interested to hear how is your testing going. And I will catch you guys soon. Bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about